I'd been staring at my bank statement in disbelief. Watching $8,200 vanish for a budget vacation. I was apparently too expensive to join. I hit dispute, removed my name from every shared account, and froze the Airbnb. Villa access denied. Help! My sister's message felt like the punchline to a joke I was only just getting. It started innocently enough. I was doing my monthly financial cleanup, preparing for rent and dreading the grinding noise my car had started making. Opening my banking app, I expected the usual mundane transactions. Instead, I found a trail of familiar purchases that made my stomach drop: Southwest flights to San Diego, an Airbnb in Encinitas, grocery deliveries, a rental van, and something called chef services 3 days. The dates matched perfectly with my family's tight budget getaway. The same trip my mother had diplomatically explained I couldn't join because there just wasn't room in the budget for another person. The same vacation she'd downplayed as not really a family reunion, just some rest time, when I'd asked about it weeks before. They hadn't even tried to hide it from social media. My younger sister Mia had posted a parade of beach photos, matching sun hats, pool floats, cocktails with little paper umbrellas, everyone grinning like they'd won the lottery. I'd even liked one of the posts out of habit, scrolling past their happiness without realizing I'd bankrolled it. The cruel irony wasn't lost on me. They didn't steal my credit card, they didn't need to. Months earlier, during one of our family's financial crises, my mother had convinced me to add her as an authorized user on my account. Just in case, she'd said, playing the guilt card when my father's truck broke down. I'd also shared my login credentials for various travel sites to help them book cheaper flights and accommodations. At the time, it felt like being a good son and brother. Now it felt like I'd handed them the keys to my financial destruction. The betrayal cut deeper because everyone was in on it. Even my other sister Ella, who usually played the family peacekeeper, had smiled for those beach photos without a word of protest or warning. They'd all agreed that my money was fair game, that my absence was acceptable collateral damage for their perfect weekend. Sitting in my apartment, staring at the evidence of their deception, I actually laughed, a short, bitter sound that surprised me. Then I got to work. I disputed every single charge, removed my mother's access to my accounts, changed all my passwords, and blocked every shared service. The digital purge felt like performing surgery on my own life, cutting away the infected parts before they could spread. That's when Mia's desperate message arrived. Villa access denied. Help. My response was swift and surgical. Budget's tight, remember? Then I sent a message to our family group chat. You stole from me. I've already reported the charges. Don't contact me unless it's through a lawyer. The phone started ringing immediately. First my parents, then my sisters, all calling with the frantic energy of people whose vacation paradise had just evaporated. I let every call go to voicemail. I wasn't interested in their explanations, especially not when they'd come wrapped in the same condescending tone they always used when they expected me to just take it. The text messages that followed were predictably manipulative. My mother called me dramatic. Mia claimed it was all a misunderstanding. Ella begged me not to make this a legal thing. But they all knew exactly what they'd done, and for the first time in my life, I wasn't going to let it slide. They cut their vacation short. Apparently paradise loses its appeal when the credit card stops working and the private chef stops showing up. I didn't get advance notice of their early return. The first sign came at 9:17 a.m. when I opened my door to find Ella standing on my doorstep, holding a paper bag from my favorite bakery like some kind of peace offering. She didn't smile, just handed me the bag and said we needed to talk. I didn't invite her in, and she didn't push. Her explanation came in soft, practiced sentences. No one meant to hurt me, Mom thought I wouldn't notice, I always seemed financially stable anyway. The line that stuck with me most was, "It's not like you're struggling, Tony. I think she assumed you wouldn't mind." As if not struggling was the same as consenting to theft. As if financial stability meant my money belonged to anyone but me. By evening, they'd all come through in shifts, each delivering their own version of a non-apology. Mia called to say she was sorry things got out of hand, but she didn't know how to say no when Mom had already planned everything. She claimed she didn't realize it was that much money, as if $8,000 was pocket change. My father texted an hour later, telling me not to blow this out of proportion. Family handles things internally, he said. This wasn't worth ruining everything over. The subtext was clear. My feelings were less important than family harmony, and family harmony meant accepting abuse with a smile. When my mother finally showed up in person, she stood on my porch with her arms crossed, radiating the kind of defensive energy that comes from being caught red-handed. She didn't want drama, she said. She was sorry if it felt wrong, but she really thought I'd understand. She kept using that word, understand, like she expected me to thank her for including me in the con, even if I wasn't invited to enjoy the benefits. None of them were apologizing because they felt guilty. They were apologizing because they'd been caught. I told them I needed time to think. The next morning, I sent what I thought was a clear message to our group chat. I wouldn't press charges this time. I was willing to forgive them, but if anything like this ever happened again, I'd have to protect myself however I could. The responses flooded in immediately. Hearts, thank yous. We knew you'd understand. They made it sound like I'd passed some kind of test, proven my loyalty to the family bond. At the time, I thought maybe that was the end of it. I didn't expect everything to magically fix itself, but I thought the message was clear. You can't treat someone like a backup plan and expect them to keep smiling. What I learned was that in my family, forgiveness doesn't mean closure, it means permission. About 3 weeks later, I noticed a charge from an urgent care clinic in Ella's name. Then a dental bill. Then a small hotel charge. When I confronted Mia about it, she gave me some story about her friend's birthday and needing a place to crash. The charges kept coming, a few hundred here, a few hundred there. My mother asked if I could help just this once. With the gas bill, then the internet, then she casually mentioned she'd put me on autopay for their electric bill because it was easier. Easier for whom? I told myself I'd confront them. Then I told myself it wasn't worth the fight. Then I told myself maybe it would stop on its own, that once things settled down, they'd start seeing me as a brother again instead of a walking debit card. But it didn't stop. In 4 months, they burned through almost $10,000, and somehow, no one even said thank you. By the 5th month, I wasn't even surprised when money disappeared from my account. I'd start each week scrolling through charges like I was reading someone else's life. $218 to a dental office 2 towns over, $340 to a mechanic. Later discovered this was for Mia's friend's car because he didn't have credit, utility payments to companies I'd never heard of. When I asked my mother about the utilities, she said it was easier if I just took care of their stuff for now. And they'd square up later. They never did, of course. I started pulling back slowly. I stopped replying immediately to their messages, stopped offering help unless directly asked. When they did ask, it always came with some manipulative twist. You know Mom's too stressed to hear about this. Or, don't tell Dad, he'll make it a whole thing. As if I was the one keeping the peace by quietly footing every bill. The breaking point came when Mia sent me a message that cut straight through all the pretense. If you really loved us, you wouldn't make us beg. I stared at those words for a long time, not because I didn't know how to respond, but because I'd been preparing my response for months. So I sat down and wrote them a message, not angry, just honest. I told them I was done being their safety net, that whatever sense of family we had left was being hollowed out every time they treated me like a credit line. It wasn't just about money anymore, it was about respect, about being seen as a person instead of a resource. Then I told them I was leaving. I'd been planning it quietly for months, saving whatever I could after their financial raids. Through a friend, I'd found a sublet in Queens and already put down the deposit. I hadn't told anyone because I knew someone would try to talk me out of it or find a way to guilt me into staying. I gave them 2 weeks' notice, said I needed real space, not just time to cool off, but actual distance. I told them I hoped they'd understand, though I didn't really expect them to. I was right. The replies came fast and furious. Mia was livid, calling me selfish and accusing me of throwing everything away because of one mistake. Ella texted in all caps, "Please don't tell MOM this isn't a joke," which told me everything I needed to know about whether they'd taken responsibility for anything. My father's response was the longest. He accused me of running away, said that life is hard and family leans on each other. I was taking things too personally, he wrote, as if it wasn't literally my personal bank account they'd been raiding for months. My mother didn't respond at all. 2 weeks later, I packed my life into a borrowed pickup truck and drove to Queens. No one came by to help. No one stood in the driveway to wave goodbye. No hugs, no, take care, just silence. My friend Kyle helped me carry boxes up 3 flights of stairs. His girlfriend brought me a plant for the windowsill, joking that it was impossible to kill. It was the first time in months that someone had given me something without expecting me to owe them for it. Then came the quiet period. They didn't reach out that first week, or the second. No check-ins, no missed calls, just absence. I almost started to believe that maybe this was it. Maybe they'd finally gotten the message. By the 5th week, Mia messaged first. She hated to ask, she said, but needed $300 for an urgent vet visit for a friend's dog she was watching. I sent it, stupidly thinking this might be different. Then Ella needed $500 to cover rent after a roommate bailed. I sent that too. Then my mother texted about car registration fees, claiming my father was too busy with work to handle it. I sent the money each time, telling myself it might help rebuild something, that maybe this was the moment things would change. But nothing changed. It just confirmed what they already knew. No matter how far I moved, they still saw me the same way. And worse, I was starting to see myself the same way too. The pattern continued with mechanical precision. Another Venmo request from Mia. $250 labeled for tonight, please, urgent. No explanation, no context, just another casual transaction like I was the family ATM on standby. When I didn't respond immediately, Ella texted. Mia said you ignored her? You're really going to leave her stranded over a couple $100? I was sitting on the edge of my bed, having just gotten home from a long shift. I was doing freelance work and delivery jobs to make ends meet in New York. I'd skipped lunch to save money, my feet hurt, and I hadn't even opened the takeout container I'd picked up hours ago because I was too exhausted to eat. And here they were, treating me like their personal credit line with guilt trip charges. That night, I opened the spreadsheet I'd been keeping, partly for documentation, partly because I needed proof I wasn't crazy. The numbers were stark: $10,263 in 5 months. Car repairs, birthday dinners, rent shortfalls, groceries, utility bills, even one labeled therapy copay that I later discovered was actually for a manicure appointment Mia had booked during a girls' weekend. Scrolling through it all, I didn't feel angry anymore. I felt stupid. I'd kept thinking that if I gave enough, they'd stop seeing me as a means to an end and start seeing me as a person again, as a brother, as a son. That same evening, Ella sent another message. Just don't tell Mom, okay? She wouldn't be able to handle it if she knew you were serious. Just let her think you're busy. That was all I needed to see. I called Ella. She picked up fast, probably expecting me to cave. I'm not sending any more money, I said. Silence. Then a laugh, not genuine, but one of those disbelieving, sarcastic sounds. Wait, what? You heard me. You're just cutting everyone off? Just like that? No, not just like that. After $10,000 and 5 months of being treated like a backup plan. You can't do this to Mom, she said. She's been really stressed, and this. She wasn't too stressed to drain my account. Or to ask for money. Or to pretend I didn't exist until she needed something. Tony, this is dramatic. No, this is overdue. I hung up. They all started calling after that, not all at once, but within the hour. My father left a long voicemail about families sticking together. My mother texted a single line. I hope you're proud. For the next few days, I kept my phone on silent. No one asked how I was doing. No one offered to talk unless it was about what I'd supposedly taken from them, as if boundaries were theft and silence was violence. I didn't send any more money. And everything stopped. They went completely quiet. No messages, no calls, no check-ins, no updates. Holidays passed, birthdays came and went. I wasn't invited to anything. No one even told me how my uncle's surgery went, even though I was the one who'd driven him to his appointment 6 months earlier. It was like I'd been cut out of a movie halfway through, edited out of the family narrative entirely. I wish I could say I didn't care, but part of me did. Part of me still checked my phone occasionally, thinking maybe someone would send a real message, something honest, something like, "We're sorry." But they didn't, and I started to wonder if they ever would. Then came the visit request. It started off polite. That's how it always begins, with softness, as if the damage never happened. My mother texted on a Wednesday afternoon. We'd love to come see you for a day or two. It's been too long. No mention of the silence. No acknowledgement of the $10,000, the guilt trips, the way they'd frozen me out the second I said no. Just casual warmth, like nothing had ever happened. I stared at the message for a while before responding. Part of me didn't want to open that door again, literally or figuratively. But curiosity still lived somewhere under all the resentment, so I said yes, one visit, one day. They showed up that Saturday afternoon, all four of them crammed into my father's SUV, looking out of place on my Queens block like they expected someone to steal the car. I watched them through my window before opening the door. My mother brought a box of pastries. Ella brought a bag of local snacks. My father barely said hello. Mia didn't look up from her phone. We sat in my small living room making small talk, work, weather, city noise, a few comments about how tight my apartment was. I could feel them inching towards something, circling a topic but waiting for the right moment to strike. It came about 20 minutes in. My mother cleared her throat and smoothed her jeans like she was about to give a speech at a PTA meeting. So we wanted to talk to you about something serious, she began, glancing at Mia, who finally put her phone down and made eye contact. Mia got accepted into a really good university in Arizona. Out of state, but it's a great program, nursing. I nodded slowly. But the costs are more than we thought, she continued. Her scholarships cover some, and loans would cover the rest, but with interest rates the way they are, we'd be paying for years. Ella jumped in a little too quickly. She's worked so hard, Tony. We just want to give her a good start. Then came the line that hit like a cold slap. We were hoping, my mother said, you could help. Just until things get settled. The full amount would be $45,000. I looked at all of them, one by one. My father stared straight at me, arms folded like he was expecting an argument. Ella gave me a soft, hopeful smile. My mother looked firm but polite. Mia sat with her arms crossed, like she'd already made peace with whatever my answer would be. I let out a quiet laugh. Not because it was funny, but because the sheer audacity caught me off guard. You came all the way here to ask me for 45 grand? My mother gave me a patronizing smile. We didn't want to do this over text. We thought it was more respectful to ask in person. I stood up, my heart racing. Not one of you has called to ask how I'm doing in 6 months. You went silent the second I stopped sending money. But you come here, to my home, to ask me for more? That's not respect, that's strategy. Ella shifted in her seat. Tony, don't turn this into something bigger. This is about Mia's future. You've always said education matters. I said it mattered. I didn't say I was funding it for people who cut me off the second I had boundaries. Mia rolled her eyes. You act like we're strangers. You've treated me like a stranger. My father finally spoke. You're being emotional. Think logically. You're not married, no kids, no real financial burdens. You can do this. I walked over to the front door and opened it. You need to leave. My mother's face dropped. You're seriously kicking us out? You came here with one goal, and it wasn't reconciliation. It was money. Just like always. They stood slowly, gathering their things. No one said anything for a few seconds. Then my mother stopped at the door and looked at me. You've changed. Ella added under her breath. You used to be kind. And Mia, as she slid into the back seat, didn't even look at me when she said, You're just selfish now. Then they drove off. I watched their SUV disappear down the block. The pastries sat unopened on my counter. I never touched them. The silence that followed wasn't peaceful, but it was clean. And for the first time, I wasn't sorry for how I'd handled it. 3 weeks passed without a word. No follow-up texts, no apologies, not even a fake. Just checking in. Message. The silence wasn't shocking, it was familiar by now. But it felt different this time, colder, like I'd been categorized as no longer useful and shelved accordingly. Then the requests resumed. First from Mia. Hey, not to bug you, but do you have $200? Just for a couple days, I'm in a bind. No. How are you? No mention of our last conversation, just money. Always money. I ignored it. 2 days later, Ella. I didn't want to ask, but I'm short $500 for rent. Just this once, I swear. That phrase, I swear, was starting to feel like an inside joke only they were in on. For reasons I still can't explain, I sent the money. Some small part of me was still holding out hope that helping again would be the gesture that finally woke them up. They didn't even say thank you. A week after that, Mia sent another message with no context. $350. That was it. Not even a question mark. I stared at the screen, then deleted the entire conversation thread. And I stopped. Just like that. I stopped responding, stopped sending, stopped hoping. But the story didn't end there. The real surprise came about a month later when I ran into my cousin Rachel at a bar near my apartment. She was visiting the city with friends, and we hadn't seen each other in years. I figured we'd do the quick, polite catch-up thing and move on. After a drink, she leaned over and said, "So is it true you cut everyone off?" I blinked. "What? Your mom's been saying you've changed. That you moved to the city and now you think you're better than the rest of the family." I laughed, thinking she was joking. She wasn't. Apparently, at some family gathering, maybe Thanksgiving, maybe Easter, she couldn't remember, my name had come up. My mother had painted me as distant and bitter. My father called me selfish, said I'd forgotten my roots. Ella described me as cold now. Mia claimed I'd chosen strangers over blood. Rachel said it like she didn't totally believe them, but it still hit me like a gut punch. I hadn't just been cut off, they'd rewritten the story. I was the villain now, the ungrateful son, the entitled brother who moved to the big city and turned his back on his struggling family. They never mentioned the $10,000 they'd stolen, never brought up the charges, the systematic abuse. That wasn't part of their narrative. "They really said that?" I asked. She nodded. "Yeah, I thought it was weird. That's why I asked." I walked home that night with a hollow feeling in my chest, not anger, just clarity. It wasn't just that they'd used me. It wasn't even the silence after I'd set boundaries. It was that even after everything, they still had the nerve to paint me as the bad guy. That was the final straw. I went home and blocked all of them on everything, not out of spite, but out of self-respect. I deleted the family group chat, removed them from my accounts, changed the last of my old passwords just to be safe. That night, I took the spreadsheet documenting everything they'd taken from me and deleted that too. I didn't want a record anymore. I didn't want to carry it. I've heard people say that cutting off family is extreme, that it's selfish, that it's sad. But you know what's truly sad? Giving people chance after chance and watching them waste every single one. So no, I don't miss them. I miss the version of them I wish they were, but that version never existed. And I'm finally okay with that.